Hunt with passion. Never stop casting. Chase the dream. Welcome to Season 7 of Musky Mastery Outdoors. Brought to you by Bucher Outdoors. #1 in big game fish products. Recon Boats. Made by craftsmen. Built for fishermen. And by Great Lakes Potato Chips. Snack happy. Every chip, every bag.
Hey everybody, what's up and welcome back to another Quick Tips Musky segment here on the Musky Mastery YouTube channel. All right guys, in today's video we are going to cover something that we have not yet talked about on the Musky Mastery channel in great detail, and that is this. Where are you going to fish the Magnum minnow bait? Here I've got a Mag ShallowRaider. Why would you fish it? How do you fish it? What are the benefits of fishing with a large minnow bait like the Mag ShallowRaider? And you know, what's the purpose of this tool in your musky boat, okay? But before we start, and we are going to talk about equipment setup and all that good stuff that's very important and needs to be talked about when you're fishing something a little bit larger like this in the musky tackle arsenal. But first, let's talk about a couple of our other lures here, if these come off like I planned. And they did. Okay, so first of all, check this out. Let's take a look here at our ShallowRaider lineup, okay? So first thing we'll talk about, and you've seen this lure on my channel all the time. This is the little 5-inch baby ShallowRaider. Where would you throw something like this? Well, first of all, I love this lure for springtime fishing, cooler water scenarios, cold fronts, post-frontal muskies. Like anytime I'm having a difficult, any difficulty getting muskies to eat something, trigger strikes, castbacks, you name it, the baby ShallowRaider gets the job done for me. You've seen it, on this channel so many times. Baby ShallowRaider is an ultimate strike triggering lure. Now, step things up, okay? The regular 7-inch ShallowRaider, where would you throw, regular ShallowRaider compared to the baby? This is a preference thing. First thing I'll say is that some lakes, without going into a long story on this, and you folks know what I'm talking about, but if you're new to musky fishing, I'll just explain. Some lakes, there's just a size preference in lures, right? I've got some lakes where the muskies seem to just go for the 7-inch regular ShallowRaider model over the 5. I don't know why. It's a preference thing. 2 is, maybe you want a little bit bigger profile. That's another thing, right? So tiny profile, bigger profile. And then really one of the most noticeable differences here could be buoyancy, at least with stock hooks, okay? If you're not modifying these hooks, the 7-inch regular ShallowRaider will have a little bit more buoyancy. So again, if you're fishing in tighter cover, heavier cover, you may want the 7-inch ShallowRaider over the baby 5, okay? But now, why would you fish the Mag, the big Mac Daddy ShallowRaider here, the Mag ShallowRaider here? Why would you fish the 9-inch ShallowRaider? Okay, and first of all, I do want to show off, this is a brand new color there by JBO. This is Wonder Bread. A lot of folks have been asking for this color, including myself. It is a beautiful, beautiful bait. Now, application. First of all, when you want big profile, big presence, let's say you're fishing big fish water, or let's say you're fishing stained water, you need to displace some water to make your presence known. You're going after a big fish. You're on water where, maybe there's a lower, population density, and muskies target big, big meals. These are all reasons and more. Plus, as we talked about with the buoyancy factor, the big minnow bait is super buoyant. So if you're fishing around cabbage and you need, let's just say, thick cabbage, right now it's the middle of July, all the vegetation is like pretty much starting to peak, you may need a lure with greater buoyancy, okay? And we're not going to talk about trolling in this particular video, but the Mag ShallowRaider is one of my favorites for trolling. It doesn't matter if it's midsummer trolling, late fall trolling. This lure, although it doesn't look it, okay, will achieve a running depth of 10 to 12 feet on a long bomb cast easily. So even though it is a ShallowRaider, don't be deceived by the running depth of this lure. So bottom line, as we've talked about in this channel, when you've got, let's say, you know, a 500 Bucher tail for a tough bite, and then sometimes when you're going after a hot fish or a big aggressive muskie, you want to upsize to a twin 8 or a twin 10. That's essentially the same idea. When you've got a good minnow bait bite, and you want to go back on a big muskie that's aggressive, and let's face it, some of these big muskies, they really do want a big meal. That's where you throw the mag minnow bait here. Okay, that's where you're going to throw something like this. So just a couple ideas as far as application for you. It's a great lure for hitting rock reefs that top off at 8 to 9 feet. It can easily achieve that running depth on a regular cast with conventional tackle, 80-pound test, JBO Beast Spray, which we're going to get into in just a second. So a ton of applications, but let's now get to what I'm throwing it on, okay? So right here, this is my rod of choice. This is St. Croix Legend Elite. This is an 8'6", heavy power. So that is the important here, the important piece of the puzzle. You need a little bit more backbone in your rod. So I'm throwing this on a heavy power St. Croix, okay? Whether you're throwing it on a 9 or a 9.6 or a 10, just make sure it's probably a little stiffer than your traditional medium heavy, okay? Because this bait, you definitely need a little bit more rod to load and throw this lure, okay? With regard to the line, I already mentioned this is 80-pound test, JBO Beast Braid. This is just my classic musky line that I like to use. I wouldn't recommend going any lighter than 80, perhaps 65 for certain trolling applications. A lot of folks are throwing 100 these days. That's fine, but any good super braid's gonna work. Now, as far as the bait caster, okay, a lot of folks, sometimes I do forget to mention this. This is a 5.3 to 1 gear ratio. I like a lower gear ratio. It's, because this big diving lip, take a look at that sucker, okay? That's a big diving lip right there. It produces a lot of torque and a lot of vibration, and so I like the big paddle handle here on the power handle. To help me generate some speed with a big lure like this that displaces a lot of water. Okay, so that's essentially the setup. I like a little bit lower gear ratio for this. Okay, now we're going to talk about, we've already talked about the why would you throw it. We talked about what would you throw it on, probably the best setup. And now we're going to talk about how to throw it, okay? So the first thing I'm going to tell you, okay, and let me just move the boat here so my lighting's a little bit better. I have this set up here, so hopefully you're going to be able to see my hands. Now, I'm not going to go over, I already showed you the baby and the regular size ShallowRaiders. I'm not going to go over in this video how to work those. If you're interested in working baby ShallowRaiders and things of that nature, I've got a bunch of videos on the channel that cover that. And you're going to see some differences. I'm going to point out those differences today in how I'm working a big Mack truck ShallowRaider here, okay? And there are a couple subtle differences. But the first thing that I'm going to tell you that you can do with this lure, it's called a crankbait for a reason, folks, right? One of the things you can do is just launch this sucker out, especially when you're fishing rock structure, you're fishing those Canadian Shield lakes, and you want a big presence, okay? You can just cast, and look at how easy this is to retrieve, especially with that 5.3 to 1 ratio, effortless. And it's diving down 8, 9 feet here on this retrieve easily. Probably even hitting 10 feet. That thing looks amazing, okay? So one of the things, again, that you can do with this lure is just cast it and crank it. And that's what a lot of folks, especially, again, like I said, if you're fishing your Canadian Shield lakes, if you're fishing, just heavy rock structure, even here in northern Wisconsin, just our traditional rock reefs, cast and crank, bump and grind, tick and click, okay? So the same technique that I'm utilizing with my depth raiders and things of that nature, where you're just casting and you're cranking, rod tip pointed right at the lure, vary your speed, hear that bursting just like a bucktail, okay? You're varying that speed just like a blade. You could even stop and pause it if you want. You can bump and tick and click rocks, but that's pretty much what you're doing with this lure, okay? So that's one of the greatest features of this, like I said, because of the big presence, the big profile. When you're cranking it like that, it's just going to displace a ton of water and you are going to make your presence known to a big fish. So that's like one of the primary applications of this bait, is just casting, cranking, clicking and ticking, bumping and grinding on structure, okay? This diving lip, let me tell you this, guys, and you'll find out for yourself. That diving lip is practically indestructible. You can throw this and bump this, I should say, not throw it onto big rocks, but you can bump it as you're working it over structure, and this thing's going to hold up to the abuse. It's just super durable. Okay, so that's one way. Now, the second way that I throw the Mag ShallowRaider is very similar to how I would throw a baby ShallowRaider or how I would throw any type of minnow bait. Okay, and the key here that I like to start it off by twitching it. Essentially, I'm going to tell you what I'm going to do before I show you. I like to start off by doing a quick twitch, 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 slack line, pause, twitch, twitch, pause, slack line, twitch it, okay? And really suspend this bait in place, okay? Then I'm going to crank it and go right into the figure eight. And I forgot to mention this, but you will notice the heavy power rod come into play on the figure eight. You can figure eight a big, powerful, big lipped minnow bait like this with ease on the heavy power rod. So I'm going to show you that. But the pop, pop, pause, the pop, 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 bang, with a big bait like this, there's a little bit of a difference here with regard to how I am doing it, a little bit differently than the regular ShallowRaiders or baby ShallowRaiders. So check this out. Okay. When I throw this out there now, and I'm going to generate that twitch, 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 instead of going like this, see my wrist here? See how that wrist action it's real wristy? This bait is a little too big, at least for my liking, to get real wristy with it. So I'm going to show you a variation that's going to essentially get the same thing done here. And that's to use your arm as you now watch this. See this? Instead of going like this, I'm going to go like this. See how I'm pulling to the side and I'm creating those slack twitches and pops, but I'm utilizing more of my arm to pull the big bait forward and to make it twitch. It's going to eliminate the fatigue on your wrist, and you're going to generate a great amount of sliding to the side and diving action. So here it is, okay? See how there's a lot more of that pull to the body here? Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, slack line twitch, pause, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, slack line twitch, pause, okay? And now I'm just gonna crank it right into the boat. If I haven't gotten anything by then, we're gonna come right in, and you can see that heavy power rod here in the figure eight does just an amazing help for us with regard to just keeping this lure coming. But I'm going to show you that again, and this is one of the primary ways if I'm fishing, let's just say a cabbage line here or something like that, I'm going to work this the same way I would essentially, like I said, with this exception of I'm using more of my body, more of my arms to create that twitch, twitch, twitch motion, because this bait is so big. And it's, again, really, you're utilizing more your arm here. It's a subtlety, okay? But that's why you watch my videos, because I'm showing you subtle tricks. That diving lip is just, it's so big and powerful, it doesn't really allow you to twitch it with your wrist as much, so you need to actually use a little bit more of your body, okay? So I'm going to show you that here. And I'm going to see if you can see my hands here, okay? It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. See, slack line, pause. Let her float up toward the surface. 1, 2, 3, 4, pause. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, pause. And again, see this, I'm exaggerating here, but you're pulling more as you do those twitches, and then you're going to go right into a standard retrieve, okay? And there you have it. One variation that folks will utilize, and I'll show you just one last thing here, I guess I'll say. One variation that folks will do with this lure, and I don't really do this a lot with the regular ShallowRaiders, but in addition to using my wrists and that unique pulling motion that I just showed you, sometimes with this size of a minnow bait, I can become an advocate of the standard pull, pause. Still going to use one hand on that little slack line twitch, so you can hear that slack. slack line twitching it. I'm gonna pull, pause, slack line twitch. Pull, pause, slack line twitch, okay? And that's the slight variation. If your wrist strength isn't where maybe it needs to be to kind of generate that kind of action with this big lure, you can use more of your body, you can use more of your upper body to pull that lure and make it do what you want it to do, okay? So there you have it, guys. Those are the general ways in which I am working the Mag ShallowRaider here. You can utilize these tactics anytime. You know what? Actually, before I finish this video off, let me tell you one more trick here. There's one last little trick here that I'll tell you, and we hit on this earlier in the lure. Earlier in the lure, you see where my mind is, lures. We hit on this earlier in the video, and that is the buoyancy factor. Let me show you one more tricky little thing that you can do with a bait like this with super buoyant minnow bait, okay? And now, just because of the way I got my camera set up, I'm just filming this solo right now. I apologize. You're not going to see the lure do this necessarily, but I'm going to talk to you. And that's called, you can walk this lure through some gnarly stuff, okay? And by walk it through, I'll try to just emulate this right now out of the water. What I'm going to do here, okay, is a really neat, it's just a series of super slack line twitches, and all it's going to do is barely make this lure. It's going to go like this. 1, 2, 1. Floats back to the surface. 2, 1. So what you're doing here is you're slack line twitching this bait where it barely goes under the surface, flutters back up. Barely goes under the surface, flutters back up. Why would you utilize that type of retrieve when you casted this thing into some serious thick cabbage cover? So I'll just show you that real quick. And what you're gonna wanna do if you are fishing this in super thick cover is a real short cast, okay? That'll kind of lessen your running depth, so to speak. So check this out. Here's one last way you can work this, okay? It's barely going under the surface, and I'm literally, I'm literally just slacklining this thing until I get it free, until I get it out of the danger zone, okay? And then I'll crank it, okay? All right, so there you have it. Finish with a quality figure 8 there. Pause it anywhere you think there's going to be a muskie hanging out, and it's going to get the job done. So again, I hope that this video is helpful to you. If you're looking for you know, a large minnow bait, and maybe you were wondering, okay, now that I've got this thing, what do I throw it on? How do I work it? And why? What applications is it most useful in? Okay. That's what I hoped to bring you in this video. So I really, really hope that you enjoyed this quick tips video. I hope you enjoyed this whole series that I usually run throughout the summer and the fall. I really enjoy bringing this content to you. And please, in the comments section below, ask any questions. You know, if you have any questions, I promise, I'm not going to do it today because, let's see, this video is already running close to 20 minutes. So if you're still watching, thank you. If you have subscribed to the channel, thank you. And if you haven't subscribed, please do so. It really helps to, just so that you see updates and you don't need to go searching for our content. So you'll see Musky Mastery stuff pop up. But I promise that I will come out with a trolling video either later this summer or this fall with the Mag ShallowRaider and a big minnow bait trolling, and I'll show you those applications. So anyway, I really hope you enjoyed this video, and as always, thanks for watching.